thought, no, why would I change what is for me, who I am, to keep this client happy?
Well done.
And we actually had a really good conversation about it, her and I.
I love it.
And, she's strong in her beliefs, and I accept that. And she's like, I accept you.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful.
What a great place for the world to be in.
Welcome to the Relationship Psychologist Podcast.
Tune in every Thursday to learn with us as we interview experts.
And laugh with us as we banter about friendship.
And take action by implementing the tools and advice we provide to you each week to level up your personal relationships.
I'm Dana Mullen.
And I'm Alicia Hinger.
We are soul sisters, besties, and psychologists on a mission to change the culture of relationships.
Your journey to becoming more supported and connected starts
right now.
Okay. Welcome to the podcast. Officially, welcome to the podcast space. Okay, so if you guys don't know my friend Vickie, if you worked with me for a while, you've heard me talk about Vickie's work. She's amazing. She is in the animal world. We know her as just like the magic Vickie. She just works magic with all of our horses, our dogs. I mean, my dog Nala had hip dysplasia since she was 6 months old. The vet wanted to put her down actually, and Vickie came in and worked her magic, and Nala's now 8 years old and running and playing, and you would never know that she's had anything wrong with her. So if you hear animals in the room, there are 3 dogs in the room with us. If you hear licking, panting, wagging of tails, noises, it's the dogs that are here with us because it's animal friendly podcast.
Animal day.
So Vickie's osteopath who works magic with animals, who's recently moved into the human world somewhat. But tell us a bit about osteopathy first. Like I kind of was Googling like the founder of, talk about Dr. Still before this founder of osteopathy. And so what I read was that he was a medical doctor in like 1800s.
Yeah.
And he lost his wife and all of his children to pneumonia or something.
Yeah.
That's like 7 children or something.
Yeah.
Like
he lost a lot of children.
Ugh.
And then some of them lived and some of them died.
Right.
And so he wanted to figure out why. Why did some people live and some people die at this? And, so then he started looking at the body and how the body functions, but as a working unit.
Right.
Instead of in pieces. And so he realized that the body is not just the physical. He realized the body has 3 units: body, mind, soul.
Right. Which is interesting because now we say that now, but in the 1800s, when that was probably very separate. Yeah. There's the soul, the spirit, the religion, the body, the physicality of that, and the mind, which is not even part of the discussion of the dialogue yet. Yeah.
And when you read his books, he talks about body, mind, soul, spirit a lot. Wow. And the body is a triune.
So he was a pioneer.
He was a pioneer. And he talked also about stress and how if the mind is overworking, it will just explode the whole body. And that is not healthy either. So
like we know now.
Yeah.
Interesting. And his work in the 1800s was what we talk about now as far as the whole, ecosystem of who we are as human beings.
Yes.
And animals included.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's a medical doctor who's then trying to figure out how to save his kids. Sorry, we had Nala's walking around here. Noises. She got a safe place to sit down. It's comfortable. So he's trying to find out how to save his family, which is kind of like, I think, how lots of people get into their specialty fields is,
personal.
Exactly, our personal stories. So what did he discover? So he discovered this whole mind, body, spirit connection.
Yeah.
And then from his medical expertise, knew, the medical field. And then how do you incorporate this mind, body, spirit?
Well, he really had a philosophical way of looking at life when you read his books. It's more like reading poetry.
Interesting.
So when you read his books, you're not getting detailed how to do this. What he's teaching people, and still is today because his book still exists. So it's more of a philosophy that you have to get to know your patient. You can't heal someone without understanding them.
Right.
And you can't heal them unless you listen to their body. Right. So even though you're trained in all these systems and how things work, it doesn't mean that applies to this body.
Interesting.
Because of how deep the body is. And so really that's what his teachings is really about, is it's not just the technique. It's understanding how to listen to the body so profoundly that you're able to figure out the puzzle. That's what it is. Everybody's a puzzle.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So they come in with a headache or a hip issue or a back issue or whatever. Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, so if I, for my brain, so if you're a medical doctor, you're thinking you hear symptoms, you treat symptoms most of the time.
Yeah.
Right. If you're a chiropractor, you see through the lens of the spine.
Yeah.
If you're a psychologist, see through the lens more of the mind.
Yeah.
And osteopath see through the lens of all the things, like all three of them mixed together.
Yes. And that's to me what the beautiful thing about osteopathy is.
Okay.
It is taking so many different avenues and bringing it and going, okay, how many layers is there? What is going on? And a lot of people say, well, healing's like an onion. There's many
Right.
layers. It's a ball of twine.
Right. It's not that simple.
It is not simple. An onion is way too organized. So it's really complicated because like you're like, oh yeah, that's just a lung knot inflating. We're gonna inflate that.
Right.
Right. But then it comes to like, oh shit, there's something really kind of weird in there and kind of funky. And you're like, oh, that's an emotion.
Right.
Oh yeah, well, I could just pull that out, but then the human thought's just gonna put it right back.
Right. Or the overwhelm of the emotion might put it in a box.
Exactly.
Mm.
And so then to me, that's where our work comes in together, you and I working together.
Interesting.
And because you're able to help the self-will and I'm able to help the body.
Yeah.
And, the human themselves, if they don't want it, then it's no
It's
good.
not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And same with the animals. Owners can bring me an animal and they want the animal to be better, but the animal thinks they're fine. They will never tell me what's wrong.
Interesting. Or your work won't work.
Yeah.
It won't work.
Yeah. And like just the other day proved, oh my goodness, I had a great experience. See a bruise right there?
Oh yeah. What happens?
Quite the bruise. I showed up at this farm to treat this horse second treatment. And the first treatment, the dog was barking at me. So I just stopped and didn't approach, wait till the owner come and everything was fine. And then the second treatment I went and then dog was like, oh, she's here. And he started following me around. And the owner's like, get away from the horse. It's dangerous. And I'm like, Ashley, he wants an appointment. And she's like, what? Like, he doesn't do that with humans. I'm like, I know he doesn't, but he wants an appointment. Something's wrong with him. So when I was giving the horse a break, I got on the ground and sat with the dog. And the dog here had gotten a puncture somehow in the sternum. And so I was fixing, that's what he wanted me to work on. And then he decided, because he doesn't used to playing with humans, like he's a work dog, he moves cattle, and that's what his life is. It's not play fetch and enjoy human interaction. He didn't know how to play with a human. So he was playing with me like a dog. And so he was like grabbing, and he was a big dog, bigger than a German Shepherd. And he was grabbing my hand. And so then that's why bruises on my hand, on my arm. Because he's playing like a dog plays with another dog.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And relief of like, thank you. I feel so much better.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. He was great, very grateful. And yeah, but the owner was just like,
what the heck just happened?
Do that.
Seeing your work firsthand. So again, people that are listening that have seen your work, know this, but seeing your work firsthand, like watching it, because animals don't lie.
No.
Right. So I can tell the Stan story. I can tell the whole story too, but I could tell like Stan, my horse. So 2 years ago now, he was struggling, losing a bunch of weight and really sick. And, his thyroid had fallen into his neck. There's a big lump in his neck and his hair was falling out and his feet were, his hooves were bleeding. Like it was pretty intense. Yeah. And so been at the vet a bunch of times doing blood work and x-rays and ultrasounds, all the things. And, looked like Cushing's, but it wasn't Cushing's. Like we did all the medical things we could do. And actually the vet was like, you better phone Vickie. And I'd already had you on phone, but I'm like, she's coming down like whatever this day is pretty soon here. Cause you're kind of like once a month-ish. And so, so even the vet in town here was like, you better call Vickie because we don't know what the heck's wrong with your horse. Like he has all these symptoms of Cushing's and all these symptoms, but we cannot find a reason for it. And the medication's not going to work. And so, he's looking really rough. And so I brought him to Claire's home actually to you. Yeah. That time. And then we worked on him. You worked on him a bunch of times, but within like 2 months, his hooves got better. And then as the farrier, because we have pictures of this, as the farrier was like, cleaning his feet up every time, shaving off the dead stuff and stuff. We could see the blood clots moving out of his feet. Yeah. Weight changed, back got straighter, hair grew back, eyes cleared up, thyroid cleared up, like all the things. That was all your picking up on what he was, his body was happening there. And we had a cool experience in the barn. Yeah.
That was the cool.
That was really cool.
He really figured out a way to communicate to us. Yeah.
Because he built a trauma. He's had lots of trauma in his life. Yeah. And so, do you want to tell the story in the barn that happened that day?
Well, we had a young lady with us, right? And so we had her holding him and I was treating him and he has this white patch on the side. It's about that big at least, right? And I was like, okay, there is some trauma here we got to release. And so I started in with my trauma method. And my trauma method is about integration of things that upset them and cause this memory of trauma. And so he decided to really tell us. So like he was pointing to that white spot.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so you want to deal with that. And then he went and pointed to your cross ties
Yeah.
in the barn. And he went like that. I'm like, okay, you want to deal with that in relation to that. And then the stall barn was like the box stall was open like that. And then he went like that. And I'm like, okay, so you were tied up in a box stall and that's how you got this white spot.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then we released that for him and that white spot has decreased.
Yeah.
And it was just like, boom, he got healthier.
Yeah. It was magic. That's what we call you, magic, Vickie. It's magic. Like I've seen firsthand, like, so one of the other things that you do that's really gross to some, like Dana thinks it's gross.
Yeah.
We can tell some Dana stories here.
Poor Dana.
But right? I think it's fast. Okay, so just quick story. So we're at Vickie's house, like last year, I think, or I don't know how long it was. And so, you know, you walk into Vickie's house and she's always doing something with animals, dead or alive.
Yep.
And part of what you do is dissect and learn about the cadavers is how you learn.
Yeah.
So, you know, you hand me this half of a head with the brain in it. And I'm like, wow, looking at this thing and like seeing all the, you know, the severed brain and what all the connections are looking
Yeah, the
at.
hypothalamus, you could see clearly. And
mind blowing.
Yeah.
And you hand it to Dana and she first just kind of holds it in her hand. And she's like, am I holding the head? And I think she dropped it. I don't even know. And ran outside.
She literally ran outside.
I think she actually ran outside.
I don't think I've ever had anyone run outside of my house like that.
Out the door. Yeah. So, but I think, you know, it's the part of your learning that's so unique that it makes you so much, you know, so skilled, I think, is your knowledge of the body. Like having done so many dissections, you like showing me like the optical nerve and the vagus nerve, the things you like send me pictures of, and I'm like, or watching a lung inflate, like on a coyote or whatever you've used, right? Watching like, you're like, here's where it's stuck. And you're like, oh, when you say it's stuck, I visualize that picture of that lung stuck to that rib and then inflate. I'm like, and feeling like, you're like, that's what the human or the animal feels. Like I can see in the, you know, the minimal knowledge that I have of the stuff that you've done, what you're actually doing. It's pretty cool.
Well, and it's so funny because no one is surprised I do this.
Yeah,
like everyone's just so used to me. And my latest thing was like in April, I learned another piece of the puzzle for horses that's quite huge for horses. And no one ever talked about, I didn't even learn about rib head ligaments in any of the courses I took. And I took over like 5-6 courses just in just in animals.
Right.
And no one ever talked about rib head ligaments. And it's like, I knew they were there and I thought they went into the spine. But because I decided to look at a moose skeleton on the side of the highway, I learned that the ligament goes across to the other rib.
Oh.
Yes. So it doesn't go into the spinal bone, it goes across the other rib. So then that totally changes how I'm going to treat that and I'm going to listen to it.
Right.
And on Saturday, I had a horse thank me twice for releasing this.
Interesting.
So I released it and she thanked me, which is typical. She turned and put her muzzle on my hand, which is how all horses thank.
Yeah.
And then she went for her little walk, came back and thanked me again.
Yeah.
And which is unusual. It's rare to have a horse thank you twice for one thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I'm really onto something.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, she didn't even look like she had one.
How did you know?
I listened to her body.
Okay. Surprise, surprise. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. And, you know, once you learn that technique about just like stilling your own thoughts and your own mind and just taking in and listening to the 5 systems of the body.
Which are what? What are the 5 systems?
So we have our gait cycles, our walk, trot, and lope cycles. So the motion of the limbs and spine and things like that. And then we have our blood flow.
Okay.
And then we have our breathing.
Right. Okay.
Even our bones move in relation to our breathing, even our legs, our wrists, things like that. And then we have the motility of the organs themselves.
Okay.
And then we have the cranial sacral flow.
Wow.
Yeah. So you have
chakras are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, well, the chakras are all over the body even. Then you got all your energy, right? So there's probably even more.
Actually.
Yeah, there's probably even more because you got your meridians, so you got your chakras.
Okay.
Right. And those are anatomical parts.
Right.
And I studied TCM for animals. And it didn't really hit me until almost a decade later that acupuncture parts, meridians, are anatomy.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
They're just not this energy sitting there. They are anatomy. They are part of what makes us up.
right? Okay, so take us back. So Chinese medicine you did.
Mhm.
Take us back to the beginning. So how did you get into osteopathy, Chinese medicine,
Okay.
maybe even animals? Take me back to even the beginning.
Oh
Do you
my
have a whole
goodness.
other life before this of like saddle or
Um,
Hmm.
so I was never told I was smart. I never was thought I was being a smart child. I was less than average, right? And so I just like everyone's like, oh, she's so into horses. But I was creative yet. Like I always liked playing with things. I would put harnesses together for the dogs and things like that.
Okay.
And so I just decided I'm going to be a saddle maker.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do. And so I worked my way out west. And then I cold called this guy and asked him if he knew of any saddle makers. And so he goes, well, call me back in a day or whatever, and I'll give you some. So this is before internet texting.
Yes.
Right? So I'm sitting there on a payphone,
Wow.
writing out all these names and phone numbers of these saddle makers that this guy told me. And what a great guy to take his time with a stranger. Like
Yeah.
I just totally cold called them.
Good for you. And
And
brave of you
Yeah. And then I started cold calling saddle makers.
for an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Okay.
For like a job, and
So you had already been doing saddle making
No,
before this. This is
no.
your first.
This
Okay.
is my first
Well
experience.
done. Okay, good job.
I was 19. I was working at this tourism lodge in Jasper, and I hated it. It was awful. It was full of drugs and totally not my
It's
scene.
not my thing.
No. And so I was just like, I need to get out of here, right? And so I started cold calling all these saddle makers. 99% of them hung up on me.
Wow. Ouch.
Yeah, and this one guy in Merritt, BC, he didn't. He's like, well, yeah, I just lost my worker. I could use another worker, and yeah, why don't you? So I was like, okay, I'll be there as soon as possible. And so I had an uncle living in Golden, so I convinced someone to drive me down to Golden, and I stayed at their place overnight, jumped the bus, and went down to Merritt.
Wow. Great.
And like he picked me up, like this saddle maker, like I was just like, who does this, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't know him, he didn't know me, but I felt really comfortable because his 4-year-old daughter was in the back seat. And I was like, okay, well, he has kids, life is good. And so
Kids and
then,
puppies, but
yeah,
okay.
and so like he put me up at a hotel for a couple of nights, and I had breakfast interview with him, and he's like, well, you have no family here. I think you should go home.
Oh.
I'm like, no, I'm not going home. Oh
I'm
no,
here
this
to
is
work.
not going to happen. So in one day I found a job at 7-Eleven and a place to live, and I couldn't move in for 3 weeks. So I had a great aunt and uncle in Kelowna. So I went over there and stayed with them for a bit. And then they moved me my bags. I
Yeah.
literally had two
Two
bags, and they moved me, to Merritt, and I slept on the floor for a while because that's all I had. And and then I went in every single day to a saddle shop, and I asked him when was he going to hire me.
Yeah. Good for you. What
And-
persistence.
Yeah. And then once he said, yeah, you could start, and I was juggling 3 jobs.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if I had work with him. So when I would wake up in the morning, I'd call him and see if he had any work for me. And when he did, then I'd show up. And yeah. And so that went on for about 6 months. And
Okay.
then he's like, okay, well, yeah, I'll hire you.
Finally.
Yeah. So I got hired on full time, and I worked for him for about 3 years.
Good for you.
Yeah. And him and his wife were wonderful to me. They just really took me in. I honestly think I got the job, and he did all that for me because his daughter was close to my age,
Okay.
and she had just gone to Australia for a year.
You're like, she's
So-
over there. Hopefully someone does that for her.
Yeah, and he's hoping that someone is as kind to her over there
Yeah.
as he was being to me, and
I love that.
they were wonderful. I would never have gotten a start in any horse industry like that without them.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
they were amazing. Yeah,
And so you build saddles from the ground up.
yeah.
Tree up.
He taught me how to build. Well, I don't build the tree.
Okay.
He did do that, but I never learned that
Okay.
part. But I learned how to cover the tree with rawhide, and then just build it off of that mold, basically.
Right.
And yeah, so that's how I started working in the horse industry. And
Is that where you learned your leather techniques then too?
yeah,
Your leather work is
I
phenomenal.
learned a lot of my skills from him, and then practice. You don't get you don't become a
10,000
good
hours.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then Andy wanted to close down the store. and just do, like, he had a big Western store, like one of
Okay.
the biggest there was back then. And so he wanted to downsize and just go home and make saddles. And so it was time to move on, which is fine. And he told me, he gave me the best advice anyone could ever give me. He said, Vickie, if you want to be an amazing saddle maker, you go and apprentice under 12, 24 guys. You just keep learning from different people,
Yeah.
and you'll be an amazing saddle maker.
Right.
So I didn't do that with saddles, but I did do that with my therapy.
Okay.
But I did get another apprenticeship with this second guy, he won Academy of Western Arts.
Oh,
as
wow.
Saddle Maker of the year I worked for him.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's passed now, and I never did get to see him again. I was there for 6 months, but I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And he told me I could use anything he teaches me, but I wasn't allowed to take patterns or take pictures. If I
Okay.
memorized it, I got to use it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So at night I was
So
busy
focused.
writing notes.
Right. I'm sure.
And yeah,
It's a good way to learn though too. Man.
yeah, and the first repair I did for him, it was a horn cap. He wanted me to redo a horn cap. And so I did the horn cap and I think, wow, that's pretty good. I'm not bad. He walks over and rips it apart. Let's do it again. I'm like,
Oh,
holy shit. Okay. So I do it again. Same thing. He walks over, looks at it. And it's like not even like detailed looking. He just glanced at it and ripped it apart.
wow.
And so then I was like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And he goes, come and look at mine. So I went over to his saddle that he was building brand new. And I looked at it and it was perfect. Like,
Okay.
I mean, perfect. There wasn't a nick, anything. And so mine, I was taught to use a divide and make a perfect circle. So there was a hole in the center,
Oh,
right? And then there was my nails were a little bit too long and they were making marks in the leather. And so that's what he wanted gone. He's like, your stitching is perfect. Your burnishing is amazing, but you're careless.
okay. Wow. Perfectionist.
Yes. Well, he sold
Wow.
saddles for over $12,000.
Wow. Well,
That's over 25 years ago. I
Yeah.
worked for him,
yeah.
right?
Amazing.
So he's looking for
Perfection.
perfection art, high quality art. Yeah.
Nice.
And so then I still can't do a horn without doing it 3 times.
That's the way you learn. That's not the blueprint.
Yeah.
We'll later on in our discussion.
Yeah. So I'm like in my mind when I'm doing them, I'm like, okay,
But what do you
I've already
say?
done 2. This is perfect.
This is
The first
now-
one is perfect.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I don't do saddles anymore, but yeah,
Interesting.
it was, and you checked your emotions.
Yeah.
It's not like, you can burst out crying or ask for support. And
Yeah. It's literally a tough job.
yeah,
All the way through.
like, you're asking these men to teach you. You have to take it. You have to take, and they weren't being mean.
Yeah.
They just wanted quality and they're trying to teach you something.
Yeah.
So you just took it and you're like, okay, I'm going to learn and push yourself. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It was.
Probably is a foundation of like who you are, a foundation of your journey all the way through.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those men to take me in and teach me their trade, and they asked for nothing in return, was quite amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and your persistence and ability to be there and desire to learn and enthusiasm and
Yeah.
hard work and right, all that stuff also.
Yeah.
I'm sure spoke
Yeah.
language to them as well.
Oh, probably. And just sheer, I'd show up and work 12, 18 hours practicing, even after the store was closed, I'd keep practicing. I'd go in on weekends and practice.
Yeah.
And I did not have the regular 20-year-old social life.
No kidding. No kidding. So then why'd you get out of saddle making?
I was broke.
Okay. Fair enough.
I moved my business. I started my business in BC and
Okay.
then I moved it to Alberta, and it just BSE hit shortly after.
Mm.
And, it's just, that was it. People didn't have money to spend.
Right.
And so I got into part-time jobs and I hated it.
Again.
Yeah. I worked for small businesses, but it wasn't me. I'm the worst employee you'll ever have.
Unless you love it. Unless it's like teaching you how to fix a horn.
Yeah.
Then you're the greatest.
Yeah. But it's I always, the second part-time job I had, I was always like, well, you could do more. You can do more for your business.
Right.
You can expand. Let's learn more.
Mhm.
But the gentlemen
You're an
were,
entrepreneur.
yeah,
That's what you are.
they were just comfortable with
Yeah.
what they were doing and they did a fine job, but
Yeah.
you know, I really was the worst employee because I always was trying to change things.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Hence moving into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, and so then I found this pamphlet for equine therapy. And I was like, okay, well, this is like, I don't know, 4-day course. And I was like, well, let's do this. If I do this in my cell making, maybe I'll make enough money to live.
Okay.
And so I did it. And then there wasn't much I learned out of that.
Okay.
But other than I had talent
Okay.
and I really enjoyed it.
Okay. That's learning a lot then.
That is learning a
Yeah.
lot, but I didn't learn what I thought I was going to
Yeah,
learn, which
right.
is typical.
Yeah.
Right. And so then I just started a journey into learning anatomy. And so I was studying anatomy, and then I went to an anatomy clinic, a dissection clinic.
Okay.
And I was like, and I learned about osteopathy there.
Okay.
And I was like,
Huh.
I just felt like this passion. Like my heart was just like, this is what you got to do. And it was
Ah,
really
love
raging.
that.
And I was like, I'm so confused. Why do I feel this way?
Love
Because I
that.
wasn't into that listening to your body and knowing that your soul's talking to you.
Mhm.
Right. I was just kind of like, why is this doing like this is weird.
Something's
Right?
pulling me. What is
Yeah.
this?
So I signed up for the course and went for it. And I learned things. It was a really good beginner course for osteopathy.
Yeah.
But you know, of course, there's more.
Yeah. Always.
There's always more. And if
Yeah.
you just stick to one person's way,
Yeah.
then that's all you're going to know.
Yeah.
And that's why I keep thinking back to Andy saying, you know,
Learn
learn
from
from
25.
multiple.
Yeah.
Don't stop.
Yeah.
Don't stop learning. And so, you know, that just was like, yeah, I can do more. I don't need to stop.
Yeah.
And then from there, while I was in this course, I had my first cranial sacral treatment.
Okay.
And it was from a lady from Turkey. She was, I don't know why she was in America, but she was. And she gave me this treatment for cranial sacral, and it was so amazing. I was like, I want to work like her.
Okay. That's where it starts.
That's where I found the inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
So the first stuff I learned looked more like chiropractic. So I was
Mhm.
picking up the horses and throwing them over, and the more I learned, I was like, oh man, how many horses did I injure like that?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, okay, let's go settle. And then I had the horses saying, no, that hurts.
Okay.
Listen to me.
Listen.
And I had it was actually a good friend of mine, her mom's horse. He started rearing on me when I was trying to do a maneuver.
Okay.
And the mom stopped me and she goes, Vickie, this is a Hancock horse. You don't tell Hancock horses what to do.
Okay. So listen.
Yes. And I was like, okay. So there happened to be another energy worker there that day that came to meet me. And so I asked her to come and help me. And she was on one side, I was on the other. And we took T3 ventral, so we moved it down, and then we rotated it, and then we put it back up underneath the nuchal ligament in the tissue where it was. So a bull had hit this horse and knocked this vertebrae into a rotation.
Oof.
And its connection to the tissue on the midline. And then it had gone up beside it.
Ow.
So we had to bring it down, rotate it, and then
Put it
set it
back in
back
place.
up. That was my first experience to work the way I work today.
Okay. So you're like, I can manipulate this manually, but they bring in the energy person. There's an energy, a way to do this. That's different.
Yeah.
It's not so.
Yeah.
Because
And
chiropractic works, right? It works, but some people think it's kind of harsh.
it is harsh, actually, quite honestly. It
Yeah.
is harsh. Chiropractic is harsh, especially on the horses.
Okay.
It is. And like I said, if you listen to the body, it will tell you what it needs and what it
Right.
needs to do.
Right.
So yeah, so that's how I got into, like, it's just a journey and progression, right?
Yeah.
Like anything else, like your career.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so, but the animals, they definitely push me.
Yeah.
If I had, I think honestly, if I stayed in humans, I don't know if I would have gotten pushed so far. Because if you don't listen to the animals, they will hurt you.
They tell you.
Yes.
They're very honest. They're not going to lie.
They're very strong.
Mhm. Well, they're thousands of pounds.
You know,
I bet you a couple 100 pounds. These are
yeah.
thousands of pounds.
And you know,
Yeah.
like when I was a student in the first course, I was doing this maneuver that I was taught, you know, and the horse came up with all the symptoms and yes, you need to do this. And the horse said, no, whack. And she pushed the energy of my leg right over. I felt like I had 3 legs for a while
Oh,
until I pushed the energy back. But, you know, they will tell you
Yeah.
if you're doing it right. And if you are doing it right, you know, they get a little agitated and move,
Yeah.
but they don't get dangerous.
Interesting.
It's when you're not doing it right, they get dangerous.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, listen to me. This is not working.
Yeah. This is my
Just know they're
body.
so tuned in.
Mhm.
That's why I love horses so much. Animals, but horses
Yeah.
especially, so tuned in to that like the whole mind, body, spirit thing, especially the
Yeah.
spirit energy thing. That they're so tuned
Oh.
in to the something's not like a storm's happening. They let us know like hours before. Like I'm like, it's a beautiful day, and then they're all of a sudden going in the shelter. I'm like, why are they in the shelter? And 4 hours later, there's a storm. I'm like, oh, thanks, Dan. I know it was gonna thunder. You know,
Yeah.
this morning even they were trying to walk into the shelter. I'm like,
Yeah.
I think it's gonna rain today.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And like, they just know, like the year my husband died, I probably got more hugs from horses
Ah.
than I did from humans.
Oh, adorable. We just do. Anybody who has animals knows this, but interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
And like animals, once again, from working dogs that
Yeah.
don't play with
yeah,
humans.
yeah, I have a job to do.
Yeah, they have a job to do.
Yeah.
They're not kids' dogs. They're not family dogs.
Yeah,
And yeah, they'll just come over and they get on their back legs and just give me a hug.
yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for fixing that thing. Thanks,
No,
thanks for
they
listening.
just give me hugs because they felt
Oh.
I was so upset, and they would just come over and give me a hug.
Oh,
Yeah,
tuning into your energy.
yeah,
Oh, sweet.
yeah. And the humans are like, we couldn't tell there was anything wrong.
Yeah, right. Because we wear masks, and we're so, I think,
Yeah.
tuned into the mask, or the other way to say it is avoiding to what's really happening. Like, how are you? Do you really want to know, or is that just your polite way of saying just nod, say fine, nod and smile, like all those
Yeah.
fake words that we use in those fake
Social
personas.
conditioning.
So exactly, social conditioning for sure. So back to your course. So then you moved into the spirituality of osteopathy, which is like the kids said, the whole mind, body, spirit thing.
Yeah.
So much so that you've written courses now for like different colleges, like osteopathy colleges.
Yeah.
They actually train
Yeah.
some of your stuff, like let's say what your trauma method, because that's
The
specifically
trauma method.
Yeah.
Yes, that
you
was.
created the Keam trauma method.
That is a journey.
Yeah.
And,
It's
you know,
huge.
and it all came as like, it was just little bits of information hitting my brain, wondering. So over the years, people say, oh, this horse must have been abused. It doesn't like its ears touched.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, so for how long have you been doing this for?
oh gosh, you know, I was thinking of that on the way here. And I think I took my first massage clinic 20 years ago.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
so 20 plus years. Working with
Yeah.
saddles, even with saddles, you know horses' bodies too, but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So
So
my
class-
whole adult life has been about the animals.
Yeah.
For my career.
Yeah.
And
And so the trauma method came through paying
yeah,
attention.
just a little bit. And then the year Waterton burnt.
Yeah, I remember that year. We collected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we were already living over in Claresholm. And we were on holidays. And we get back and we find out one of our horses was having seizures when the smoke was the heaviest while we were gone. But he was fine. And everyone's like, you know, the vet had seen him. They called the vet, the people looking after him called the vet. And the vet was like, well, he's fine now. Well, I would put him down because it's probably not safe. And the guy goes, well, he's stable. We're waiting for the owners to make a decision. So we come home. We still don't know. And, you know, and my husband goes to work and he finds out the horse was having seizures while we were gone. And
Right.
so he calls me and goes, hey, come and look at the horse. It's having seizures. And I thought he meant right then.
Yeah.
The way he
Okay.
made it sound, right? And so I show up and I'm like, he looks stable. And he goes, oh no, he was having them while we were gone. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh. So, you know, I ordered x-rays and everything just to make sure his bones were fine in his neck and there was no fractures. Everything was clear. Blood was clear. So in the meanwhile, I was doing lymphatic shock drainage.
Okay.
So what happens when the animals smell and us too, the prehistoric flight system kicks in. Wildfires means danger, run, move.
Right.
But because we entrap them in corrals, and they can't move, so they get stuck. And so then the cortisol empties into the body, and the cortisol shuts down the lymphatic system.
Right. Exactly.
And this is what happened to this horse.
Interesting.
And he got so
And
inflamed
it's
in the
feedback
brain.
loop too, because then now
Yeah.
I'm shut down. I'm in fight or flight.
Yes.
And my brain's like, oh, still in fight or flight. Yep. Still smell it. So now it's
Yeah.
reinforcing that whole system.
Yep.
Interesting.
So I was treating all our horses for this lymphatic shock. And this is a protocol I was taught in one of my courses. And while I was doing it, this thought came to me on this mare that I have now, Jade. If I can take away something that nature has caused this horse to go into trauma and what we know now is window tolerance change.
Right.
Can I do it with horses that have been like what humans have done to them?
Right.
So that was my original thought. And then, you know, so time later, a couple of years later, whatever, like I keep, you know, talking to people about this. And so this one trainer She had a horse that was attacked by a dog in the box stall.
Okay.
And it was just a foal and it was an orphan.
Already trauma.
Yeah, you know, and so I showed up there like the next day or the day that, like, I'm pretty sure it was within the day or two that it happened. And the little thing was eating like this. And that's not how horses eat. They don't
No.
grab food
And then-
and lift their head.
No.
They like eat down
Eat,
here
yeah.
and munch and comfortable.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay. So I just went into the box stall and I started moving and the adrenal glands in this technique I saw it. And I was just standing there and all of a sudden she did this twice with me. And then I felt like a poof.
Interesting.
And then her head stayed down. And she never was scared of box stalls or dogs. And she was trained and like she's like 5 or 6 now,
Right.
maybe even 8. So it's been quite a while since that happened.
You're like, okay, something.
Yeah. And then, you know, I still, you know, chat to my clients about this and keep going. And then there was another horse that was beaten in a box stall by a guy. He took a whip to the horse for no reason. No one can figure out why he did this. He just took a whip to a foal right off pasture. He didn't own the horse. He was there looking at another horse. And so we have no idea what made him decide to go into someone's barn, animal he doesn't own, and beat her with, like, he left marks all over this horse with this whip. And it totally traumatized the owners. And so they decided, well, we'll work with her ourselves. Because I said, well, why don't we try this? And we're like, let her settle down. And this horse was like 12 hours away from me.
Oh boy.
So it's not like I could just run back and do it easily, right? So then they said, well, we'll do it. We'll try our own way. And then come the spring, they're like, yeah, that didn't work.
Oh.
She's terrified. And so she was living in a corral with a halter and a lead rope on because she was so terrified. And that was the only way they could catch her was with this lead rope, halter on. And then they might be able to catch the 12-foot rope and hold her, or they roped her, right? It was like, yeah, it was no life. And she was just a yearling, but she didn't grow.
Right.
She was trapped at that 4-month-old stage. So like, let's try your thing. I'm like, okay. So the owner caught her and I'm like, we're going to have to go to the box stall because that's the trigger, right? And humans itself, right? So the owner roped her. And
so now she's already in fight or flight.
Yeah. And she hit running blind. I have video. Like she's totally in my trauma method clinic.
Okay.
She hit running blind while he was roping her, which was
eyes white.
Oh yeah. Fear, everything. And so we got her into the barn. And so I started with relaxing the craniosacral system, just to see if I can get her just to calm down just a little bit.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Okay.
And that was my method usually with fools.
This is like a year of trauma in her body now.
Yeah, almost like a good 8-9 months.
Okay.
And so then I was like, okay, well, let's do this. So I moved to his adrenal glands and I start working the adrenal glands. And then I was like, okay, we need to touch our brain. Like we need to get into the amygdala.
Right.
And so I had the gentleman with me, the owner, put his hand on the side. And here, behold, it's exactly where I need to be. And then his hand on my shoulder. So we make the connection of energy between the 3 of us. And it worked. So we did it 3 times over a day and a half.
Okay.
And it worked. And so after 2 treatments, the next day he went into the box stall because we left her in there. Like after the first treatment, she fell asleep. She just laid down, fell asleep.
Oh.
And then after the second treatment, same thing. She laid down, fell asleep. And so then the next morning I was like, you go in there and see how she is. And so he went in there and he turned around and he looked at me. He goes, she's good. I can handle this. I know you can do better.
Oh.
And so I went in again to the box stall with her and him, and we did this again. And then the next day they could walk up and catch her.
Amazing.
Right. So that's to me the stimuli integration part of it. But then as my research went on, it was like, oh shit, this isn't for every horse that reacts like this.
Right. Because everyone's, like you said, everybody's different.
Yes.
So you gotta listen to what's happening for the
yes.
horses.
So that works for the PTSD for the horses if we know what is bothering them.
Right.
But it doesn't work if you don't know. You have to know what the trigger is. You have to know what happened to them.
Right. And if you don't know, then what do you do?
Well, you can ask them and listen. You can
just like Stan, we didn't know until he showed us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But for that to happen, they really need to trust you. So it could be a couple of year process.
Right.
Right. Because they don't trust easily.
Yeah.
They truly do not trust as,
Well, it's an earned space, just like with humans. I don't trust you to do it.
exactly.
It's an earned space.
Yeah. But what I did figure out from it, and then with our research that we did with this, was that it's how the body functions. The true body, mind, soul connection is whether people's window of tolerance, where it is in animals,
Right.
right? So animals are more protective of heart, lungs, kidneys, brain issues. So if the heart and lung is not functioning properly, if the lung is caught on the ribs, their window of tolerance will not be a natural state.
Because they're not breathing, just
Yeah, so they're protective. They don't want to be eaten.
Right. Yeah.
They want to act like everything's fine and we can run really fast because we don't want the wolves to catch us.
Right.
But the thing is, the wolves aren't in existence for
Yeah.
horses anymore. Now it's humans.
Yeah.
Now they don't want humans to touch them and put a saddle on them and crank that cinch tight and rope off of them and turn barrels and,
Right.
you know, like
We're the threat.
we're the threat.
Yeah.
Right. And so we need to look after that. We need to make sure the heart and lungs are healthy and they can breathe, and that keeps them in that window of tolerance where they can learn.
Yeah, massive. Well, it's
Yeah,
like a human too.
moderate it.
If you're in pain and then trying to do your math problem, or even
Yeah.
in, pain physically, mentally, emotionally, all the pain, it's hard to, retain information, and hard to, to
Yeah.
regurgitate it after the fact too, to do a test that so
Yeah.
you can't learn or regurgitate information when you're in a state of
Yeah.
distress. So in animals, the same thing.
Yeah.
So I want animals to learn how to do this roping, barrel racing, whatever thing you're doing better, pay attention to the cow, whatever
Yeah.
they're actually just like, it's hard to try to focus on something, of toothache or a backache, try to focus on, to learn new information. Try to sit in a class all day.
Mm-hmm.
Same idea.
Yeah.
So as you're releasing their pain, they're like, okay, now I can be present here and now, and we can
Yeah.
partner up and we can do our job together.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is interesting, and they're less dangerous because they're not so protective.
Yes.
They're not moving as fast.
Yeah.
So my horse Jade, we don't know what happened to her because we bought her when she was 7 and we were told she was untouched,
Oh,
but she was terrified of humans.
okay.
Right. So people that heard we bought this horse, they're like, you guys are crazy. Well, I had a kid riding her yesterday,
Yeah.
not by herself. I was
Yeah.
leading, but the horse was just like, okay, there's a kid on me.
Yeah. Well, that was Stan too. When I bought Stan, they were like,
Yeah.
he's as good as he's going to get. Don't ride him bareback. Don't put kids on him. And obviously you've seen him in
Yeah.
lots of workshops with
loves
kids.
kids.
He loves kids. He put kids on him bareback all the time. With
Yeah.
his head down. He's a babysitter. That's what
Yeah.
he does.
And I know my horse can be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At work. And,
And she was so happy yesterday when we were riding.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. She was just like trotting and she's like, we're out, we're exploring and
I'm in a rhythm. I feel safe and secure.
yeah. And her eyes. So like, I really learned how to read the horse's eyes.
Yeah.
And when they're, them too, right? The
Yeah.
big shiny deer in the headlight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Danger.
That's high.
Danger.
That's danger. Right? The horse cannot think easily and things like that. And she used to have that all the time.
Yeah.
And now, nice, calm, quiet eye. She's happy.
Yeah. Even a little
Yeah.
emotional eye, you can read what that is,
Yeah.
with that window of like, they're a little emotional, but there's something happening, but
Yeah.
great safety for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
excellent.
it was so much fun yesterday. We rode for about 4 hours, and when we got off and took breaks, right? She's eating. And this, a lot of horses just eat, ignore the owners,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, just ignore them. But she ate. I've had enough. And she come and she like rested her muzzle on my shoulder and she's like talking to me and she's like, hey, scratch me. Yeah, okay. Right there, and then I'll scratch a little bit. And then she starts talking to me. She has this little whinny. She's talking to me.
So cute. So, man, you've saved so many animals over the years. So many animals. I also love that you're honest. If there's an animal that's like beyond repair,
Yeah.
you'll say that too. You're not the one that's going to be like, let's just keep trying.
Yeah, no, you
You're
can't
like,
do that.
yeah.
They deserve dignity. They deserve
Yeah.
respect. And I'm guilty. I had a horse that he was injured, and my husband's so experienced with animals. He took one look at that horse the next day after he injured himself. So put him down. He's done.
Yeah.
And it was young in my career, and I was like, no, I can fix them, and blah, 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 and very arrogant. And then a year later, the horse was crying. He was in so much pain.
Yeah.
And so I put him down and I checked out his leg that had been injured, and here he had broken his acetabulum,
Oof.
shattered it.
You could see that.
You can't see
Yeah.
that. There's no way to x-ray that. He was about a 1,500-pound horse.
Yeah.
And he lived for a year with a broken acetabulum. And so I made him the promise I would never do that to another animal.
Yeah.
And I know some people feel like I'm probably like too soon, But I'll tell you what, I've never regretted putting down an animal.
Right.
The things I find in them,
After the fact,
is
you
mind
know.
blowing, and even foals. I did one this year.
Mm.
It had herniated the intestines the day it was born. And so I looked at it, and the liver, the tissue that surrounds the liver, everything's in layers, like an onion, but it's more complicated than an onion when you're fixing it. And so the fascia around the liver, the abdominal muscles was growing out of it.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Like a hernia.
Well, and then it created a hernia.
Okay.
From the umbilical cord,
Right,
right?
okay.
And then I found a tumor, and I found scarring on the lung.
Oh,
So for a day-old foal to be born like this, and all the vets saw was the hernia, and they're like, oh well, we can sew that up. It's going to be this much, and the owners just felt it was too much money for the value of the animal at that
Right.
age. But then you don't see the rest of the story behind it.
right.
Right. And that's why I really enjoy what I do for the dissections is I look into it
Get to
and
see
I
it.
see the rest of the story.
Yeah.
And so this foal probably, might have lived a month, might have lived 5 years with the operation. We don't know.
Right.
But to have the abdominal muscle grow out of the fascia like that from the liver.
Yeah. And this, all the scarring and
Yeah. Like
Lung.
how healthy would she have ever been?
yeah.
Right. So
Such a hard call. Hey, like my horse just died recently, as you know, and yeah, I'm the same as you. I'm like, well, I'm terrible. I'm probably the worst. If there's ever a chance we can potentially save it.
Mhm.
And I remember you said he deserves to have dignity. And when the last day when I was there, I was like, I knew, and the vet knew
Yeah.
was, we tried all the things, but I actually regret I probably should have done it like 5 days earlier. I kind of let another extra 5 days of me
Yeah.
just like hanging on.
Yeah.
When I actually knew probably 5 days earlier. I could tell by his eyes and
That's what I find with
Yeah.
humans.
Yeah.
They want to hold on. They want to hold on.
yeah.
People are like, oh, he's 25, he's fine. I'm like, he has a U in his back.
Yeah.
That's not fine.
Yeah.
He's in pain.
He's in pain. Yeah.
He's in pain. They want the horses to live 30, 35. And I've had patients live till they're 30.
Yeah.
Two of my first patients, they lived till they were 30. I
Yeah.
started working on them when they were teenagers, and they got
Talking
right
horses here.
on horses. Yeah.
Your patients are horses, remember?
Yeah. And they were good.
Yeah.
They were so good. And one horse, she broke her leg at 30. If she hadn't broken her leg, she would have
Wow.
lived longer.
Wow.
And then the other one, he had kidney dysfunction and his
Oh.
kidneys went.
Yeah.
Right. And so like the therapy does make a difference.
Yeah.
We are able to keep them healthier
Yeah.
and moving better longer.
Well, it's proactive.
Yeah.
Like, medicine is mostly reactive.
Yeah.
And so if we're doing proactive stuff, we're lengthening, their
Yeah.
lifespan, but also their quality of life,
Yeah.
their lung capacity, their movement, their mobility, all the things.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is both these horses, their backs never went swayed.
Interesting. Well, Stan came swayed, as you know.
Yeah.
He was only 9.
Yeah. We're not working on that.
Yeah, it has gotten worse. It actually gets better and then kind of back to how it was. It goes back to baseline and then gets better throughout the season.
Yeah, but it's mobile.
So it's very
like
mobile.
it flexes,
Yeah.
it moves, and that's
Yeah.
what I want.
Yeah.
I've seen the most amazing things. Horses with the most crooked legs, and they're fine. They're happy. Like as owners, we want everything straight and perfect,
Yeah.
but that's not reality for these animals. We're not straight and perfect.
Yeah.
We're asymmetrical.
Yeah. So mobile, adaptability,
Yeah.
lack of pain, right? Being pain-free. Those are the things
Yeah.
we're looking for.
Yeah, and healthy.
Yeah.
Healthy in the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always look for the mind. I used to care if I got a horse not walking lame by the end of the treatment.
Right.
Now I care about where that mind is.
Interesting.
If that mind is calmer and healthier, that's what I want.
Right. And the body will follow suit
Yes.
with it.
Exactly.
So speaking to mind, that takes me to like the energy back to, so we talked about like the 5 systems, but actually there's more like 8, 9, 10
Yeah.
systems actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Mind depends on how you describe mind. When I think of the word mind, I don't think of brain. So brain is another system.
Mhm.
I think of mind as like energy and flow. Like it's energy, that organizes the brain, actually, the energy that organizes all the systems when I think of mind. So I think of mind as more energy.
See, and I think of mine as like us having conversation right now.
Oh,
To
interesting.
me, that's the mind part. So it's interesting. We both have a different perspective on it.
Like I think,
Yeah.
so I guess like when I think about parts of self too, I think of parts of self. So I think of self as is the self energy that I'm the here and now, most organic, authentic version of self, but it's still a part of my mind. So self is still like the CEO of the company. So the company is my physical, emotional,
Mhm.
spiritual parts of me or parts of the animal, right? And myself is the boss or the CEO that hears and recognizes all the parts of me, that's going to organize and listen and pay attention and make decisions for the company of me. But it's still a boss, it's still a part. And the mind or the soul or the source would be the energy I'm connected to. So there's another part that's the bigger energy that we're all connected to, which is earth, everything is energy.
Yeah.
Everything's energy. And so when I actually tap out of self into energy, that's actually source. People call that God.
Yeah.
Right. So source is then what, if I can get out of self and tap into source for a second, that's everything that everyone ever will be. That's where actually true intelligence and wisdom, love, creativity, all that stuff comes from, inspiration comes from, and then bring that back. So self is sourced, directly, and then self brings that knowledge, that wisdom to the parts. So I think of mind as like that trail. I think of mind as like that energy channel. Of like the mind is the energy channel from self to source. Source is everything, all things. And the mind is that energy channel, that probably a subconscious energy channel that connects those two things.
Yeah.
So that's my very deep definition of mind.
Yeah. And we both studied the systems, but differently from different perspectives.
Yeah.
And we both have different experiences in our lives.
And there's really not
that bring
one
us
definition
up
of
to
mind,
this.
I don't
No.
think. Like I don't think you could probably look one up that's the same for
No.
everybody. But
No.
so tell me about your perception then of like how, because I don't know much about this, the chakras and the nadis. Like I didn't take any acupuncture or any kind of, that's not my training. I have little bits of mindscape and body talk and the little bits I've done. But how does that play into the systems? Because you wear the trellis, what do you call that?
Chakra trust.
Trust. I was gonna call it trellis, trust. And that's a newer thing for you.
Yeah. It's only been about a year. So I always the journey of evolution on energy started young for me. I was in my 20s, and is one of the ways my husband and I, we were destined to mate, and we talked about a lot.
Nice.
And so he introduced me to some of it because he was already on that journey and things like that.
Which is interesting because he's like
he was working cowboy,
like rough and tough cowboy farrier,
Catholic background.
Like not that you would think that's on his dialogue, you would think.
Yeah.
But I love that.
Yeah, he just loves self-evolution.
Yeah.
Like to him, that was the main thing in life.
So cool.
And so anyway, so the journey, understanding chakras, and then with my ability to speak with spirits and angels. So I really have taken my information from them.
Right.
And
so you have all this hands-on Western training, Chinese medicine training, and there's just other energy, like I said, source.
So I didn't study the Hindu for the chakras. I listened to the angels and what they have to tell me. Right. So the chakras being energy centers in the body, and they are anatomy. They are part of you. And they connect your body to your soul.
Right.
So, and it's the same thing with the acupuncture and meridians. So with the chakras, learning to run the energy through them, the Kundalini, really was able to heighten and allow my ability to speak with the angels more and open up to the heavens. So that big communication with the source you're talking about, that's what allowed me to do more.
Right.
And so then last summer, as my life was changing and I was doing this for part of my career, and I decided to drop that and move into another section by myself. I was like, well, I really need to think about things and know how I want to present myself. And so I listened to your podcasts about the self of parts.
Okay. Yep.
Right. And I'm listening to it and I'm like, she's right. There is so many different parts to us, and that we really need to listen to, just like I listen to the animals.
Yeah. So many parts of them.
Right. So we need to listen to ourselves, and we need to connect with the souls and our bodies at all these different levels. And so I did a meditation on self of parts, and I was like, what self of parts need to be? I haven't concentrated on in a while. And I picked my chakras. Well, then my third eye chakra is like, hi, I'm here.
Pick me.
Yeah.
Because I think of all the parts, like I like how you describe this, like all the little parts, like if I think of like even your amygdala you talked about earlier, as a little personality.
Yes.
It's its own little person, its own little memories, its beliefs, its biases, its, it's training, its blueprints, right? And your liver has its own personality, and your my thought train, which is just the part of me that keeps all the thoughts organized, and my manager, like they're all little personalities. So your little third eye is like, hi, has its own little personality.
Yeah.
Little character, if you will. Yeah.
And it was so interesting. And I just felt like so much connection with my soul through that meditation, just with my third eye. But then afterwards, this feeling that's come to me quite a bit over my life is I needed something here.
Yeah. Well, it feels nice to even if you're listening to this podcast, put your hand on your
Yeah.
forehead for a sec. There's a
Yeah.
real comfort. We did Hawkome was one of the trainings I did years ago.
Yeah.
Actually with a lady named Maxine Rydell. I just was at her son's birthday party, but we did this technique where we had to put our hands on each other's forehead.
Yeah.
And then we were doing some therapy. But I remember and even now, I'll never forget that feeling. Have someone else just be present with that part of your body. It was like so soothing and healing and vulnerable, but with a safe, connected person. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
connecting.
So that's how the chakra trusts come. And then as I spoke with a few other divinities about it, and then they pointed out how I designed it to go like this. They're like, you're encompassing the whole chakra.
Interesting.
So that chakra isn't just our pineal glands. It like encompasses from our prefrontal lobe back to the pineal gland and then back to the occipital.
Well, okay.
And so your vision cortex.
Right.
Right. And so that's your third eye.
Right.
And I always think it's so interesting.
See beyond seen.
See beyond seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the jade I picked, I love green. It's my favorite color. But also too, like in Japanese, the jade is wealth and prosperity. And so for me, what that means, I don't think of human creates society and money as wealth. To me, it's happiness.
Right.
And so that's what I'm projecting.
Which is a choice, which is beautiful. Because I choose this every single day, which means I'm seeing beyond seeing for joy, happy connections and all things.
Exactly.
And
so that's and it's really, it's been fun because I've had a lot of different reactions over the last
what is
year.
that? Like a competition piece?
Yeah.
What do you wear?
So this one guy just randomly in a restaurant one day, he's like, what is that? And I'm like, oh, it's a chakra trust. He goes, oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. And then someone else is like making fun of me. Yeah. And I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. I don't think you're one to care.
Like a few years ago that would have bothered me. Yeah. But now, now I don't care. And
your 19-year-old self was like, I showed up at a saddle store for 6 months to get home. So I don't care what people think. If I believe in it, I'm doing it anyways. Not stopping me.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I do I have a lot of clients I respect for what they've done in their lives. Right. And so I was going to one, I knew she was quite religious. And so I was really debating whether or not I should wear it. And then I realized, she wouldn't think twice about taking her cross off.
Yeah.
Right. And not that I see this as a religious symbol or anything. It's nothing. It's a connection for myself. Yeah. It has nothing to do with the religion.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, no, why would I change what is for me, who I am, to keep this client happy?
Well done.
And we actually had a really good conversation about it, her and I.
I love it.
And, she's strong in her beliefs and I accept that. And she's like, I accept you.
Yeah.
And that was wonderful.
What a great place for the world to be in.
Yeah.
Stop being for somebody else. Actually be for your authentic self and open the door to be like, I don't actually have to believe what you believe or agree with you, but we can still have a conversation. We can still respect and love and compassion for each other.
Exactly.
What a beautiful way to live our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And I totally believe that. Yeah. It's okay.
So true. Yeah.
It's okay for everyone to have different thoughts and
it's actually necessary. It makes the world interesting.
Yeah, it does.
All the AIs are doing the same thing.
Exactly. Right. Like how are you going to learn new things if everyone is the same?
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
No, it's interesting to have conversations.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just switch gears into, so you and I are starting to do something. Well, I shouldn't say started. We've been starting this for years now. But we're actually just opening the doors to serving clients in this way officially.
Yeah.
So
I'm picking our patients.
Yes, exactly. So we kind of case studying this. So, okay. So full disclosure. So as Vickie's working in the animal kingdom and I'm seeing massive transformations with animals and hearing stories from other vets and other people that you've transformed. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, well, what you're doing with animals, I see in humans and I can take them so far. And some people, that's great. Some people just therapy. And I'm not a typical therapist anyways. I don't do lots of just talk therapy. It's a lot of somatic and releasing the body and that stuff anyway. But there's another skills that you bring to the table. So with a few people over the years, mostly friends and colleagues that I was like, hey, who I trust that they know the stuff that I know. I'm like, do you want to try this thing? And I want to kind of just want to do some tests of it, see if this works, like with a bull rider friend of ours and like a colleague of mine. And anyway, so we kind of, even friends, tested a few people out to say if we could undo some of their trauma from physical, emotional, all kinds of different traumas. We unwind these and we saw profound changes.
Yeah. And I think that's what, what is the Keam trauma method? Well, the Keam trauma method is doing what it takes to help that body.
Yeah.
Whether it's human or animal.
Yeah. So we brought in horses for some of them.
Yes.
Use the horses with people sometimes, or just,
Yeah.
worked with their body, or it was it's kind of the combination.
Like, do we need the stimuli integration? Very few.
Yeah.
Like it works,
Yeah.
but very few actually needed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I think, for us, we had one. For the animals, I had maybe a dozen.
Yeah.
Truly. And when it actually came down to physical body, emotions, self-will thinking.
Yeah.
That's what it
memory.
came.
Even just memory triggers the stuff to come in the
Yeah.
system. So essentially what we're doing is working with humans, animals still, you work with animals too, but working with humans.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be trauma.
No.
I guess trauma, if we define trauma as simply, I would just say it's unfinished stuff. So it's having an experience that I didn't have the capability at the time to fully process. And so some of that stayed in my system, like Bessel van der Kolk says, it stays in your body. The body keeps score.
Yes.
So the trauma literally finds a little pocket. Imagine like a little character then lives in a little house in your leg, or in your house, in your spleen, or in your liver, in your back, or in your jaw, wherever it's living metaphorically.
Yeah.
And so going into that body part, but you have the ability to go, it's not just the jaw, it actually needs to be unwound back here in the brain or in the spleen. Like you'll find actually where it's stuck, it's just manifesting in the jaw, manifesting in the lower back.
Exactly.
Right? And I'll say, let's go back into the body part. Let's give it a voice. And so we're doing kind of an IFS-ish, Gestalty, psychodrama kind of therapy way to get ourselves in there. And so as I'm walking them through their meditation, it's therapy through meditation, really is what it is. And I'm having them close their eyes, get into their body, and then we're giving that part of my voice, and then working through either, depends on the person, right? Either into the memory of that experience, of that time that happened, and then you're redoing, opening the layers of the body to heal, and or just being in present moment of that, whatever happened, and to tell the stories. I don't need to tell the story, but what's happening right now in real time is bring that energy, that little character to here and now, and listen to these dogs breathe. And listen to your, you have music that you have had made for that frequency, actually, has the music been made in an area where downstairs are plants and with animals, and we're, in nature as we can be, and bringing that to the here and now, and then unwinding whatever needs to be unwound, or healing, or like you said, draining the lymphatic systems, or so there's not, when people ask what we do, and I'm like, well, it's a complex thing, but it's actually quite simple. But it's complex because I can't say there's just one thing we do, because it depends on the person and what they present. And even when they come in and say, I have a headache, or I have indigestion, or I have whatever. I remember the one boy we worked on a while ago, that one teenager, right, came in and he was just feeling anxious. That was his anxiety. And I was like, let's see if we can, and you found this like concave part of, like his lungs were stuck.
Yeah.
And literally when you put your hand there, like there was a dip in his rib system.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, that's been there forever. And you're like, and you popped it out. And he's like, and then that was it. He was like, like $1 million. What did you just do to me?
Yeah.
Right. Like, and teenagers won't lie either. Teenagers are like, they're going to tell this is bullshit if they think it's bullshit. And they're like, oh, wow, what did you just do? Like my son thinks you're magic. All of my kids do. And Drew doesn't buy into like, anything woo. He's like, but he has he phone Vickie.
Well, and it's crazy. I have these friends, and their son was 8 at the time, and he had been driving the side by side. He was learning how to drive, and he hit the steering wheel, hit a fence, hit the steering wheel, right? And so I was there like a couple weeks after, and I'm like, yeah, you're fine, right? But lungs are sensitive, and they take a very long time to deflate. So like when you're in a car accident, you hit the steering wheel, and it's like, oh yeah, you're fine, you're just bruised. Well, you won't feel the repercussions of that for 6 months to a year later.
Interesting.
Right? So that's what happened to him. And so then he's like, he kept on telling his mom, I need an appointment with Vickie. When's she coming? Right? So he like was on the table, like the table was being set up, and he was jumping on the table right then. And when I got that lung and reimplanted, he's like, oh, I can breathe now.
Yeah.
And an 8-year-old kid is not going to say whether or not it feels better or not.
No.
Like they're like the animals. They're going to be yes or no.
Yeah. Feels good or not.
Yeah. And, I learned so much from that kid too, because there was other systems in his body that wasn't right.
Yeah.
And they corrected themselves within 3 days.
Yeah. That's also interesting, right? So we focus on all these symptoms. If we actually go to the source, like your lung is stuck, that's the most priority symptom that we're seeing. That's the most priority thing we need to work on. And then the rest is then why it's an ecosystem.
Yeah.
So you remove something here and the rest can now start to flow naturally.
Yeah.
Get rid of that
Absolutely.
blockage.
Everything. And our homeostasis is always doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So whenever we change one thing, doesn't matter on which level, our homeostasis needs to find a new balance.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is why I think with the animals, I love watching. And so the treatments are longer. Like if you're a chiropractor or you're doing medical, they're quick treatments, but yours, just like the animals, you adjust and then you have them go for a walk. With humans too. So if you come and see us, you might be like, go for a walk. That's just a way of being like, let's see if this can integrate into your system. Yeah. And or come back into it to see how you're feeling. Yeah.
And because I don't want to be like, I treat so differently than most human therapists.
Yeah.
So I used to keep notes and, I test the whole spine, I do all this, write my notes, and then come to the conclusion.
Yeah.
And that's protocol,
Yeah.
right? And then as I evolved and the animals told me, it was like, yeah, that doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
Because all you're doing is like, okay, you're going back and following this protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you fix something and then the compensations for that might have corrected itself.
Yeah.
So you go and correct the compensations, but they did need to be corrected.
Yeah.
Right. So you're overworking the animals
Yeah.
and they didn't like that.
Yeah.
And so the way I work now is like, okay, I do have my steps I start with. I listen, I start with the kidneys on the horses. And then I just listen to the body where it needs to go. And then by walking them so much, neurology changes.
Yeah.
This lets go. They can
Yeah.
take a deep breath. They notice
See
things.
them.
Right. And so if you just let the horse unwind on its own,
Yeah.
it's easier for them and it holds longer.
Yeah.
Because it's not being forced. Who wants to be forced to do anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like on Saturday, I had a sternum that couldn't shift forward. And a lot going on with the horse. Doesn't look like it. She looks beautiful, but I'm just like, no, this isn't right. She's landing toe first. Very incorrect biomechanics. So
Yeah.
what's going on? And so I use a tuning fork in the Hertz to release fascia. And so I did this, or we did it a little bit, tried to get the sternum to move. It wouldn't move. I'm like, percolate. 40 minutes later, I go back, boom, it moved.
Moving. Nice. Yeah.
You know?
Just like humans, you need time to process. Do
Yeah.
a little thing and let it sink in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And if I fought with her and pushed on it, she would have started fighting.
Yeah.
And she would not have been enjoyable.
Yeah.
So
And that's actually confident to be able to take space to go, let's just let it see what happens in a minute. Give it 15
Mhm.
minutes. Let's see what happens.
yeah.
Because, the pressure we feel to like fix it right now, people are looking and the owner wants it fixed and
Yeah.
just give it a sec. That's
Yeah.
confidence
And
in
that's
your
the
skill.
unfortunate thing where I always feel bad for the animals. I know a lot of animals, they could heal if the owners give them more time.
Right. Right.
Yeah. That really wasn't a big issue. We didn't need to rush in it, but either they want to sell the horse or they want to perform, and they
Right.
want it now. They want everything fixed within a month
Yeah.
or now, minute.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, and tissue takes a year to heal.
Interesting.
So the skin closes up right away because the body doesn't want infection. That's
Right.
that's the protection it does. So, you take an injury, the skin heals up, it's fine. But what's going on underneath, we
it.
don't see.
Yeah.
So it takes a year. And meanwhile, like what is all happening in the compensations and everything that we're not seeing?
Right. To energy to heal that.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I took a bad kick. I wasn't listening. It was the year my husband died, right? I wasn't listening to the horse. I wasn't listening to my angels. And I got injured and I had a hole in my leg.
Right.
And so then I was like, okay, slow down.
Yeah.
Big boom, slow
Yeah.
down, right? And then I went to Paris to visit with his family. And I was just so stupid. I was walking in Paris, tripped over cobblestone, tore a ligament in my foot.
Oh,
Right at the
gosh.
Eiffel Tower. I'm like, if I had done this in the mountains, I wouldn't be so upset.
I'm in Paris. I want to see.
Paris looking at me, like it just was like, it was looking, I was just like, this is not my environment, right? And so anyways, and it took me like 5 years to heal from this,
Wow.
right? Because like, okay, why did that happen in the first place?
Right.
Why did
Intention.
one simple like this
Mhm.
tear a ligament? Well, because of things in my body wasn't right.
Functioning, yeah.
And, so I took
And a
the
mixture,
time.
of trauma and grief and
Yeah.
physical. And
Exactly.
pay attention and focus elsewhere. Like there's so many combinations to make that event.
Right,
significant.
exactly. And then healing my heart
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
so many things. So like I was really careful and I wouldn't push my body, doing stairs. I kept going, but I didn't overdo it.
Right.
And this is like 5 years where I used to go like walking in rivers with my husband fishing,
Yeah.
not thinking anything of it. And then all of a sudden I can't even do stairs,
Yeah.
right? And so it just took time. And 5 years later, and then yesterday I walked over a mile on
Nice.
not rough terrain,
But
but
still,
it was
you're-
in the hills
yeah.
and it was in pasture land and my leg was fine. It was
Yeah.
strong,
Yeah.
you know.
The patience.
So patience, you need to take the time to allow your body to heal and, unwind it all,
Yeah.
right? Like you can do it in 6 weeks and say, oh, I feel good. But then you take another injury a year later, do you realize they're related?
Right. So the message I'm hearing then, if people listening is to listen to your body,
Yeah.
listening to the horses, listening to the animals, but listen to your body and listen deeper than you think.
Mhm.
Like listen deeper because what's in the way is again, a part of us that has an agenda.
Yeah.
And so listen beyond the agenda. If there was no agenda, if time wasn't the thing, what's your body really saying right now?
Yeah.
or whatever part's talking to you. Like,
Yeah.
To lean back and take the time to listen.
Exactly. And of all things, when I don't listen to my angels, if I don't listen to what my body wants,
Yeah.
they shut me down.
For
They
sure.
will teach me a lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're out of alignment.
Yeah.
Back over here.
And the lessons
Switch
are
your
not fun.
That's true. Isn't that so true though? That's so true.
You know?
It'd be a fun, like study to do if we just lived in alignment at all times, if there wouldn't be any hard lessons. I think like life's still, there's still storms in the world.
Oh
But
yeah.
internally, we'd be living in a place that's,
Very different. How would you perceive those storms then?
Yeah, absolutely different.
Right? Because you have to have sunny days, you have to have cloudy days.
Yeah.
And I learned that in my
Yeah, for
20s.
sure. Yeah.
Right? You can't have sunny days all
Yeah,
the time
and you
because then
appreciate
you
them all.
don't learn to appreciate them.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just the way it is. But on the rainy days, can we dance in the rain?
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Let's even know that.
Exactly. So like this year, I've been like so thankful for this rain.
Yeah.
And most people are like, okay, well, it can stop raining. I'm like, oh no, the earth is so thirsty, you guys. We need to appreciate what this is.
Yeah.
Because we really haven't had rain in 4 or 5 years here.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, let it all go.
Yeah.
We had such a beautiful winter, but we need the rain, right? So let's dance in the rain.
Let's dance in the rain. Appreciate it.
Exactly.
Appreciate it. So how do people find you? If you want to know more, I'm sure they're interested now of, so you work with animals mostly.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
my
dogs,
primary.
dogs and horses, or
Yeah.
I mean, probably any animal.
Farm animals in
Farm
general.
animals.
As long as they're not killing me, I'm happy.
She worked on a chicken this morning at my house.
Yes, exactly.
I have a little chicken that's not growing, so she ran in her. Just
Chickens, goats,
anything
baby
animals.
goats. I love working
Oh.
on baby goats. They're so much fun.
Cute.
Yeah.
So cute.
Well, and the goats are like, just are quite easy to, like when they're babies and it's a mother that either a first time mother or another grouchy mom about that baby, like they'll just trample them and it's so easy to pop them back out. Like they're like folding boxes.
Oh my gosh.
And they'll get squished and I just come along and go poop and they pop back out and they run away and they're happy.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so popping goats. We have fainting goats and popping goats now.
Exactly.
And they can find you. So obviously the hales.ca.
Hales.ca is my online clinic.
And it stands for what?
Helping Animals, Inspiring Lives.
Yes.
So that's the clinics for animal professionals and owners. If they want to know what the animals have taught me, that's where the information will be.
Okay.
And then VickieKeam.com for my personal
So just
therapy website.
VickieKeam.com.
Yeah, and that's for the animals.
Okay. And this will be linked, of course, in all YouTube or wherever you are. So, yeah, sorry, there's animals flopping around in here right now. You can still hear them. And then are you on social media?
Facebook, Vickie Keam Animal Therapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And if you're interested in doing the animal human thing, go to my website. Just it'll be linked here.
Yeah.
It's already linked here. But
Body mind integration, I believe we're calling it.
Mind body mind integration, whatever it's
something
called.
like
So
that.
it's only every third Monday at this point. There's some introductory rates because you're offering good rates right now. So
Yeah.
check that out and be happy to work with you guys.
Yeah. Come and just,
We have
relax
like
and
6 or 7 people booked today. So
oh wow.
Yeah.
We're gonna be
it's
busy.
been a long day. But it's always fun. Every time people
It
do it's
is,
fun. It's fun
yeah.
to watch their body change and their breathing change. And I obviously see the mental health part. I see the relief in there.
And I really appreciate working with you because that makes it easier for me. Creating boundaries with people, but also too, if we have people coming to work with both of us, we know they want it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what I ask.
Yeah.
Like if you want an appointment, come here open-minded, wanting to evolve.
Yeah.
Because that's what this is.
Yeah.
This is about self-evolution.
Yeah. And so it doesn't be trauma. Again, trauma is just unfinished stuff in the body. And so that didn't have the chance to process patients. And so we're offering it that, but it could just be, I'm stuck because I'm not breathing very good. And I haven't, I'm gonna slow down. I need to slow things down. Or I'm having some indigestion, or I'm having headaches, or I'm just, feeling unhealthy. Or I'm even kind of feeling, even with you, like, I'm feeling pretty good. And you're like, let me just work on this thing. I'm like, oh, I actually feel better than I did. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, even if you're just curious, I want to, we all have stuff all the time. Think about all the information our body's taking in from the environment all the time.
We all have
That
our stuff.
Gets stuck.
We all have our stuff
Why
that
not
we need
just
to let go.
Get off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Well, this has been fun.
So fun. Appreciate you. Check her out, you guys. Like, you will love her stuff. If you're in the animal world, in the kingdom, at least in Alberta, people know who you are. But anywhere that you're listening to this, check her out. She's
and
amazing.
with my distance healing, I
she
can
can do
work
distance.
anywhere in the world now.
Yeah. Yeah. She can tap into your animal wherever they are, and you will see it in your animals instantly. Like your animals, take it from me. I've seen my animals walk differently after a treatment with.
Yeah.
Walk, stand.
Exists differently.
Exist differently in the world. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Awesome. Okay, such a pleasure. Love you.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We're really glad you're here with us on this journey.
The best way to support this podcast is to subscribe and give it a 5-star review.
See you next time.
This has been a Bread Dog Studios production.